am overdue. This is Colette from Conversations with Colette. I trust that all is well with you. You would recall that we are focusing on financial wellness on the Conversations with Colette channel. I know that I have not been as active as I was initially on that channel because I have been inundated with work through the World Business Executive Coaching Summit that I'm a part of and other projects that I'm working on. But as promised, we are going to be looking at financial wellness. I just want to have a quick conversation with you and give you a quick update. So when we talk about financial wellness, we really want to understand how we manage money. What is our relationship with money? Do we really need to spend the way that we do? Do we make a list of monthly, weekly, fortnightly activities and expenses that we engage in? Do we prioritize as an individual, as a couple, as a family, as parents? Do we set SMART goals, individual savings goals? Can children save from allowances, lunch money, etc.? Do we maximize the skills and talents that we have developed and honed over time? What prevents us from creating wealth? Are we preventing our own progress? Is wealth centered only in a particular type of family or a particular strata of society? What does it take to create wealth? So when we talk about financial wellness, we're talking about that kind of stability that you have when you know that you're managing your money well and you're able to meet your needs, and also you're able to build wealth not just for yourself but also for future generations. So what are the basics of finance? It's important for you to understand. So financial literacy is extremely important. And I encourage you, if you are interested in creating wealth, I recommend that you become financially literate. There are many YouTube videos, there are many books on the market. Rich Dad Poor Dad is one that comes to mind right away. And there are persons that you perhaps want to follow. You probably want to follow the life of Michael Leachin to see how he has invested over time. You probably want to look at Warren Buffett and the strategies and principles that he has outlined over time. And you probably just want to look at somebody in your community who appears to be successful and who you know has invested wisely, whether in real estate or other assets. And we will talk some more about that. It's important to understand the savings and investment options or opportunities that are available to you. So what sort of interest rates are available now on saving accounts? What sort of interest rates are available on investment instruments? What is available in different currencies? Because it's always good as well when you are seeking to create wealth that you do not just center all of your savings and investment in one currency. But even if you are starting small with just a savings account, it is good for you to have savings accounts in different currencies. Why? Because the value of the currency will fluctuate, and in Jamaica's case, where we do not really export a lot, we are really an import dependent country, you will find that quite a bit of what we need has to be purchased overseas. Because of that, there is heavy demand for foreign currency, and we know that demand drives up price. So as we purchase foreign currency to purchase or acquire the assets, the goods, the consumer goods, the cars, the machines, the raw material that we need, then you're going to find that the price of the foreign currency will go up. When we start exporting more, then you find that the terms of trade are more favorable, and so you will find that we are in a better foreign exchange position in terms of our reserves. Now, so far over the last 7 years or so, the government, successive administrations have done a pretty good job in terms of managing the reserves. So we have not had a major problem in terms of limitation on access to foreign currency. What we do have is a limitation in terms of earning foreign currency, because the reserves that are held at Bank of Jamaica do not belong to the government of Jamaica. As a matter of fact, even when we access special drawing rights through the International Monetary Fund, those are really just window dressings to make sure that if we're going to the capital market to really offer any sort of instrument, then we are in a good position in terms of the NIR or the gross international reserves. All right, now we just want to talk a little bit about creating a budget, and a budget really is a financial plan of action. Why is it important to create a budget? When you get to the discipline of creating a budget, it helps you to identify where your money is being wasted. There are things that we spend money on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on a fortnightly basis, and even on an annual basis that could be avoided. So a budget helps to sort of discipline you. It helps you to be more focused in terms of how you spend your money and how you manage your money, your relationship to money. So a budget, again, a financial plan of action, and it helps you to streamline your income and your expenditure so that you can achieve your goals. Very important as we talk about goals. It's important for you to set SMART goals. What do we mean by that? It should be specific. What exactly do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? So to say that you want to own a house, that's not really telling me anything. Where do you want to purchase the house? What price do you want to pay for the house? What size house do you want? What is the purpose of the acquisition of the house? So it must be specific. It must be measurable. It must be achievable. So if you tell me that you want to purchase a house and your income is not going to afford you the mortgage of 50 or 60 or 70,000 Jamaican or US dollars, then it means that you have to look at new streams of income to be able to purchase that house, or you have to adjust the price range that you are looking at in terms of purchasing the house, and also in terms of the time frame for you to have the deposit and to identify other sources of financing for the mortgage. So it must be specific, measurable, achievable or attainable, realistic, and it must be time bound. Within what time frame do you want to achieve the goal? And as with assets, in terms of asset acquisition, so it is with all of your other goals. Your goal may be one to finance your education or your child's education. It may be one to start a business. It may be one to purchase a motor vehicle or a piece of equipment to buy a farm. Whatever your goal is, it is important for your goal to be SMART. Having talked about that, it's important also for us to talk about estate planning. And I attended an estate planning meeting recently with RBC of Canada. And one of the things that they looked at is the importance of making a will. Not just making a will, but we know that death is an appointment. Unfortunately, many persons don't want to talk about death, and so some of them even die intestate. They die without leaving a will, and then it creates confusion, and they have to spend a lot of money to get the estate administered. They have to spend a lot of money so that the family members can get access to the estate. So estate planning is extremely important, very, very important. Death is an appointment. The only thing that we must do is die and pay taxes. But while we live, it is important for us to live in such a way that even when we pass on, then our family members are not involved in major conflicts because we did not outline what our wishes are. Very, very important. You save your family from feuds and conflict by putting a proper estate plan in place. An estate plan is not just for the rich. Everybody can create an estate plan. It helps to remove uncertainty. It outlines your final wishes, including how you want your body to be managed, how you want your body to be handled. There are some persons who go as far as create their funeral program, the songs that they want and how they want everything to be done by their family members. So estate planning is very, very important. What are some of the mistakes that are made in estate planning? At the end of your day, it is important for family members to know where all of your assets, all of your liabilities and obligations are. You do not want to pass on and then you find that you have assets, you have a piece of land here, or you have a piece of tool there, or somebody owe you some money here, or you owe an obligation there, or there are some tax obligations on your property and your family members do not know what to do. There is confusion because there is not an outline. So we highly recommend that you have a detailed statement of your net worth, and I give credit to RBC for highlighting this fact in the seminar that we attended last week. Detailed outline, detailed statement of your net worth. And we talk about the net worth. What are your assets? What are your liabilities? And then when you subtract your liabilities from your assets, you get your net worth. In addition to that, we want to know what are your obligations. What are the financial obligations outstanding? And of course that will fall under liabilities, but we want to make sure that your family members or the executor knows exactly what to do in administering your estate. Check and update your will regularly for relevance. You may make a will now and you may find that the persons who were supposed to be beneficiaries on that will, some may have passed on, some may not necessarily still be in your good graces, or you may decide that you want to make some changes based on different relationships that have been formed over time. So it is important for you to check and update your will regularly for relevance. And when we say regularly, maybe every 2 or 3 years, to make sure that what is there in your last will and testament is exactly what your wishes are at the end. It doesn't mean you're going to die. It just means that there is clarity in terms of the instructions to your family members. Choose an executor not because you are a friend of the individual or because the person is close to you, but you must choose an executor who has the time, the skills, and the expertise and commitment to ensure that your will is correctly handled. Do not choose an executor on the basis only of friendship, because that person may not have the skills that are required. And when it comes to apportioning your estate as to who is to receive what and what is to be done, and any outstanding taxes to be paid and any obligations to be dealt with, you want to make sure that you have somebody who has the skills, the expertise, and the integrity. It takes time, it takes effort, and so most executors are paid. I think the estimate is about 5% or so of the value of your property. All right, the overall net value of your property. The executor needs to be paid because it is hard work. Now, tax planning, very, very important for us to be aware of tax planning. Protect your assets. Make sure that you do what is required to protect your assets. You have tax evasion and you have tax avoidance. Tax avoidance is not illegal. Tax evasion is illegal. So if there are loopholes available to you in managing your estate to minimize the tax obligations if and when you pass on, or even during your lifetime, then you have to know where those loopholes are. And those loopholes I refer to are provisions in the tax code that can assist you in ensuring that you capitalize on the value of your property, both for yourself and for your beneficiaries. Now, having talked about that, it's important as you do your estate planning that you have a conversation with family members. Family members need to know what your wishes are. You don't have to give them all the details about what John is to get and what Sarah and Mary and Audra are to get. Just outline to them what they are expected to do, and you may want to provide some information about the institutions, for example, where you have savings and investments and any obligations that are outstanding that they would need to take care of. Very important to have that conversation with your family. Another part of financial wellness that we need to talk about in detail is insurance. Insurance provides you with coverage of your risk, and we have different types of risks and different types of insurance. Insurance also gives you peace of mind. Insurance provides a financial buffer. In the event that the risk is realized, God forbid an accident, dismemberment, critical illness, then you can pull on a good insurance policy, make a claim against your policy to offset the cost of dealing with those sorts of incidents. Very important for you to understand the different types of insurance and the benefits of insurance. You have key man insurance if you're running a business and you have one or two persons that are critical to the operation of the business. You want to have insurance to cover these persons or this individual, so that God forbid if that individual passes on or moves ahead, then you have that sort of coverage to buffer the impact of that person no longer being available for the business. Your property insurance. There's quite a bit of liability associated with persons who visit your property, so you want to make sure that you are properly covered in the event that there is a risk associated with your property. You have death benefits, and it is so sad sometimes to see that people die and the family members have to be setting up GoFundMe account. You know, people have pride, and a lot of times during their lifetime they try to work hard, and I believe if some of them were alive, to see that family members are setting up GoFundMe accounts to finance their last rites, their funeral, their memorial services, they would be a little embarrassed. So if you can avoid that kind of embarrassment to your family members, then by all means get insurance so that you can meet the obligations, the financial obligations that are associated with funerals, burial, and managing after the person passes on. Insurance also provides an excellent buffer for the family members who are left behind, because you will know that when you die, family members will still have a life ahead of them. Children still have to go to school, the bills are going to keep on coming, the family will still be facing financial obligations that must be met. And if you are the main breadwinner, or you are the person who is in charge of other dependents, it is important to have insurance. Very, very important. Insurance also is a form of wealth creation. If you realize that persons who are wealthy, 90% or more of persons who are wealthy have insurance. You know why? Even when you have to do a drawdown on that insurance policy, that buffer helps you to preserve any additional wealth that you have set aside. It also allows your family members to have continuity in terms of managing their lives, continuity in terms of education, continuity in terms of the business, or continuity in terms of any goals that they had set for the family. Talk a little bit about real estate. And I know that I'm giving you much in this presentation, but when we talk about real estate, we're talking about acquisition of property. And sometimes people hear real estate and they say, Lord, I can't afford any property right now. I can't afford to buy a house. I can't afford to buy land. But if you are already the owner of a property, even in a rural area, I want to encourage you to add on a room or an apartment, a studio, because that is going to create passive income for you. And even when we decide that we're going to talk about retirement planning, you're going to realize that inflation, consistent increase in prices over time, will eat away at the value of your dollar. So it's important as early as possible to put plans in place so that you're going to have additional streams of income to meet your day-to-day obligations and also to preserve your wealth. So whether it's going to be a studio apartment, a 1 or 2 bedroom that you're going to put on the house that you are living in at the moment, do that. If you can acquire other real estate property for, let's say, Airbnb, or for renting or subletting or even farmland, quite a number of young people are getting into farming now and they're finding it lucrative, because food security is extremely important to us, not just in the Caribbean but globally. You want to look at acquisition of real estate and have that as part of your portfolio. Now, based on what I've shared with you so far, you realize that we've really talked about portfolio management in a sense, because if you're going to be talking about savings and investment, and you're going to be talking about having savings and investment accounts in different currencies, local currency, whether it's Jamaican dollar, US dollar, wherever you live, Canadian dollar, CI, Barbadian dollar, you name it, then you also need to ensure that you have it in other currencies, so that if there is any fluctuation in the value of one currency, it can be offset in increasing the value of the other currency. You also want to make sure that you don't put all your eggs in one basket. So if you're going to be having stocks in your portfolio, you want to have different types of stocks in different industries. And of course, you know, you have preference shares. Preference shareholders don't have voting rights, but they have a fixed rate of return. The dividends that are paid on the preference share rates are normally stated right up front in the contract. So if it's a 7.5% preference share, you know that you're going to be getting 7.5% on your principal within the time specified in the contract. If it's an ordinary share, then you may find that dividends are paid according to the discretion of the directors. When they see that they have sufficient money available, then they will pay out dividends, and those dividends again form what we call the passive income. You hold the shares until maturity, then when the maturity date comes, you get back your principal, the amount that you had put in. If you decide that you're going to be selling or disposing of the asset, the financial asset, whether it is stocks or bonds or whatever, then you find that you are going to get what we call capital gains if the value increases. And we know that stock prices, bond prices fluctuate depending on what is happening in the market and the strength of the fundamentals of the company. So we will talk some more about that as well in terms of how you invest, what you invest in, and we want to look at the risk. Government securities are usually low risk. Corporate bonds and other forms, including equities, are high risk. So it's important for you to know the sort of securities you are getting into, the risk that is involved, and also the kind of return that you should expect or demand. Now, the higher the risk, the higher the return, because you have to be paid a premium for the additional risk that you are taking on. In terms of a bond is really a long-term debt instrument that is used to raise capital, and the bond makes what we call coupon payments. So the coupon payments on the bond will be made whether semi-annually, annually, or otherwise. And in the same way that you would hold a stock, a share, and you would sell it before the maturity date, it depends on the price in the market. Similarly with a bond, if you sell it before the maturity date of the bond, then it means that you could make capital gains or you may incur losses. But you have to determine what you want to do, and usually most persons will hold their securities until the maturity date. But things happen, life happens. And so there are times when you may find that you're in need of the money and you have to make up your mind and you have to sell some of the shares or you have to sell a couple of your bonds. That's all right, as long as you know that you're making an informed decision. but you need to ensure that you sit with a financial advisor, outline what your objectives are. The financial advisor will assess your risk tolerance and they will determine a good portfolio for you, particularly with a good financial firm. It is important to ensure that your financial advisor is qualified and trained. If there is any question associated with this, feel free to put them in the comments and I'll be delighted to answer them. Looking forward to speaking with you some more. We have to organize some interviews. When we organize those interviews, then we will have a conversation with persons in the industry who can assist in ensuring that you create wealth. Something I want to share with you before I go about investing in real estate. If you're going to be investing in the real estate, look at the cost of the land with a structure, refurbishing versus building on the land from scratch. So if there's a structure on the land, if there's a house already on the land, then you may only need to refurbish that house. If there is no structure on the land, then it means that you are going to have to get a plan, have the plan passed by the parish council, and then you will get the authorization to start building. Once you start your construction, you have to put plans in place to protect the material, because if you leave the material, you may find that there is pilferage, and even sometimes some contractors are not so honest. So you want to make sure that you're monitoring that process well. It is important to determine if the demand for housing in the area where you're building is high if you're thinking about rental. Personal use of the property versus tenant use. If you're going to be getting tenants, and it means that you have to screen the tenants, you have to know the type of tenants that you're taking in. And that also goes for guests as well. If you're going to be operating an Airbnb, if you're going to be operating an Airbnb, it is important for you to screen your guests very well. It is important to know the tax rates and estimated tax over the last 5 to 10 years in your area, because you have to meet the tax obligations. So you're going to be thinking about real estate. Look at the cost of the land with structure or without structure, refurbishing or building, demand for housing, is it high or low, what are the rental rates in the area, personal use of the property versus tenants, can you add on a separate self-contained apartment to your current structure, examine taxes and maintenance costs, identify source and cost of material and labor. It's good to shop around as well when you're constructing. Shop around, because you may find that one hardware store has the material that is 25, 30%, sometimes 50% higher than the other hardware stores. So shop around. Thoroughly check the foundation. You don't want to be the foolish man that is building the house on sand. So check the foundation. If you can have access to GIS surveys so that you can know what quality foundation you're building on, that would be good. Geological studies and all of that, to know what kind of foundation you're building on. Be careful as well where you build. So you don't want to build too close to the waterways. In the event of flooding, then you are going to be losing your property, or you may be faced with serious damage to your property. Very important to do a cost-benefit analysis, including an amortization of the loan and interest costs associated with building. When you get your paycheck, money is now deposited in the account. Not very many persons are getting paper checks. When the money is deposited in the account, you probably want to set up a standing order or have a system in place so that your savings and investments are set aside before you start taking out money for your expenditure. And if you're working with a budget, you will find that you will have an idea as to how much you need to keep in that financial freedom account to meet your budgetary expenses and your normal operation during the month before you receive your next paycheck or before the next deposit is made into your account. If you're operating a business, remember the business money is not your money. So you pay yourself and you set the money aside to reinvest in the business. That's how smart business people operate. Thank you for joining us on Conversations with Colette. Based on what I have outlined to you, you realize that you're not too poor to start creating wealth. In fact, when we talk about retirement planning, you should start your retirement plan from the time you get your first paycheck. It has been our pleasure having this conversation with you. Go ahead and create wealth. Yes, you can.